It was during a lab experiment that scientists tried to create a being so powerful that it would even surpass its predecessor, a Pokemon who was believed to have the genetics of all Pokemon that came after. The creation of this entity failed time and time again, creating blobs holding only a fraction of the power that Mew has. But one day, these scientists succeeded. They created a near-perfect copy of what was believed to be the strongest Pokemon to ever live. Its genetic code was nearly identical and its shape was humanoid, nothing like the failed experiments that came before it. The scientists succeeded in making the strongest Pokemon to ever live. But upon realizing the truth behind its creation, this Pokemon decimated the place in which he was born, killing every scientist in the lab. Its name was Mewtwo, and although the scientists succeeded in creating the ultimate Pokemon, they failed to endow Mewtwo with a compassionate heart.
Who asked for me to be created? I despise everything connected with my creation. And so, this is neither attack nor declaration of war. And I will strike back against you!
Mewtwo's entire creation was completely flawed. He was made purely for the selfish desires of mankind, to be used as a weapon against other Pokemon, or even people. In a way, Mewtwo carried some level of hatred from the scientists. He inherited that same hate from the scientists themselves. This is called the cycle of hatred. Hearing their selfish desires and why he was created in the first place turned him into a full-blooded killing machine. Mewtwo's mind was clouded by rage and anger against humankind as a whole, seeking vengeance against all who oppress and abuse Pokemon for their own benefit. And it's really difficult to try and understand him. On one side, it makes complete sense why he turned out the way he did. But on the other hand, he is willing to kill anyone who opposes him. He believes that trainers are just as bad as those who created him. Now, the problem is that the main people responsible for how Mewtwo ended up are not even alive. Mewtwo killed the people who caused him so much agony and discomfort. He was born for a selfish purpose. He had power that surpassed any Pokemon in the Kanto region, only second to the Pokemon he was based on, Mew. Mewtwo was created with hate and his actions reflected that hate. He has been shown to break Pokeballs into nothing, and he even threatened to kill other trainers. In fact, he was ready to take Ash and Go down in the Journeys episode, albeit maybe not kill them, but give them the Spider-Man treatment, if you will. Mewtwo never yields his sense of justice and still believes that all people are horrible. But that was until he met Ash. It was through Ash that Mewtwo finally sought to reflect on himself, but not through Ash's words, but his actions, in which he would selflessly sacrifice himself, which then served as the catalyst for Mewtwo's critical realization. All the clones and Pokemon surrounded Ash, crying over his death, and it was through those tears of sorrow that he came back from the brink of death. It doesn't take a genius to see how the other Pokemon reacted to Ash's death sparked something in Mewtwo. But it wasn't because he felt incredible remorse, no, it was because he saw Pokemon crying over a human. He saw something that completely changed his perspective over humankind. People actually cared about this one individual. They had such a bond with this one person that Pokemon felt pain. The same pain that Mewtwo once harbored inside of himself. He realized what he had done. His actions caused the hate to spread. His actions caused the sadness of the Pokemon he was trying to keep safe. That was when he realized his error. Mewtwo now realized that people were capable of both great evil and great good. Then Mewtwo turned into a docile protector over a pocket of Pokemon. Mewtwo still had his doubts over humans, but chose to set aside his grudges to better understand humanity. But of course, it was humanity that tested Mewtwo once again. During the Pokken Tournament games, Mewtwo became a victim to the Dark Energy Stone after protecting a character named Anne, and to prevent her from being controlled by it. But in doing so, Mewtwo was corrupted by the stone, and it was under the influence of its corruption. Now, after a tremendous amount of effort, Mewtwo was eventually freed from the power of the Dark Energy Stone with the help of Anne. Mewtwo found yet another human that decided to reach out to him. And although Mewtwo didn't expect to be saved, he was. Although not every good deed will go unpunished, it doesn't mean that all acts of kindness go unrewarded. And Mewtwo learned that, albeit the hard way. Mewtwo was saved by humans, both mentally and physically. Mewtwo's character has one of the most tragic backstories in all of Pokemon history, and yet after so many trials and obstacles, he still has faith in humanity. After his realization that his consequences have repercussions, and that there are people willing to be there for him, he was able to find compassion, and he was able to share that same compassion to future Pokemon. During the Genesect film, his creation was nearly identical to Mewtwo's. Genesect was created by Team Plasma as a tool for humanity's selfish desires. In other words, a weapon of mass destruction. And when Genesect gained free will, he commanded his legion of Genesect clones to fight for his cause. Mewtwo came to stop the threat, and upon realizing what he went through, Mewtwo gave Genesect his sympathy. They were two sides of the same coin, except one of them bore more hatred than the other, and was going to stop at nothing to achieve their goal. The parallel between the two is something I didn't believe I would ever see from a Pokemon movie before, but when I learned about Genesect's lore and how similar it was to Mewtwo, I was incredibly shocked. It goes to show how history repeats itself and how Pokemon suffer because of humanity's unending cruelty. But of course, that's just the typical cycle of hatred. Mewtwo ends up reasoning with Genesect and teaching it the things that Mewtwo has learned over its lifetime. And this is where we get to our main point. Mewtwo's entire life wasn't predetermined. Of course we know this, but Mewtwo is one of the only Pokemon that wasn't intentionally created like the rest. Mewtwo was man-made, which is why his anger continued to grow. Mewtwo's life was never meant to exist, and now he feels empty without a purpose to fulfill. He doesn't understand why he was created for such carnage. He was made to be so incredibly powerful, and yet at the end of the day, chooses his own destiny. The beauty of Mewtwo's story is the fact that at the end of the day, Mewtwo is still the same. Yes, Mewtwo doesn't have that same brutal mindset that he had at the beginning, but that doesn't mean he absolutely loves humans either. He still hates the bad side of humanity, but chooses to live alongside it because of the good side. Because he understands humans and the fact that he's also a Pokemon, it helps him understand the bridge between the two, where other Pokemon fail to do so. This is what makes Mewtwo so special. It's the fact that he alone can understand both humans and Pokemon. Funny enough, that was his true purpose. To cleanse all lies about people and Pokemon. Mewtwo's strength has always been something he's hated about himself, since the entire reason he's so strong was to be superior to everyone else. Being so powerful comes with its downsides. People would want that power for themselves. Mewtwo knew he would always be hunted down for his abilities, and sometimes it's kind of sad to see Mewtwo getting captured by other trainers. I think Mewtwo's entire character is meant to be free, not contained. Unlike other Pokemon, Mewtwo has a much greater consciousness, and maybe it's for the best that he's out there protecting the Pokemon he cares about. Unlike other Pokemon, Mewtwo's on another level. He shouldn't be at the side of a trainer inside a Pokeball. He's incredibly powerful and should use that strength to protect others. And in most media we see him in, he chooses to stay by the side of the Pokemon that other humans have abused, because he sees himself in them. But Mewtwo proved to both the world and himself that he too has a compassionate heart, and the selflessness that comes from protecting others even when you may not get that kindness back. But he lives peacefully knowing that there are humans out there that would help him, that he's in fact not alone.
The human sacrificed himself to save the Pokemon. I pitted them against each other, but not until they set aside their differences did I see the true power they all shared deep inside. I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video on Mewtwo's character. I personally believe that we should see more from Shadow Mewtwo, as his character is probably my favorite version of Mewtwo. Not just because he looks cool, but it proves that Mewtwo does have compassion for others, seeing him realize that there are people out there that would help him in times of crisis. But let me know down in the comments what you think of Mewtwo, as I do read a lot of my comments. But that's all Yuki wrote, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.